Hello and welcome to the Paper Boys podcast. I'm JJ Smith.
And I'm Zach Nally.
We're reporters with the Carteret County News-Times. Joining us in studio is another News-Times reporter, Macy O'Donnell. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Macy O'Donnell was as I like to call him in the stories I used to write about him, a special team staple at East Carolina University.
Special team, special players.
Special team, special player, exactly. He racked up all the snaps on special teams and was there from 18 to 22. He is now a sideline reporter for the ECU Sports Network in his second year doing that. He's also a sports reporter and a general news reporter for the Carteret County News-Times. He writes a sports column for the Carteret County News-Times. And last week's sports column was, if ECU wants to win at football, it needs to put its money where its mouth is. Boom.
As the name of his column suggests, he just says it. Just say it.
Just say it. So, give us a State of the Union on East Carolina football right now, Macy. Where they at?
Man, we're kind of in a middle of a new space right now. Honestly, just trying to win a couple more games. We have 4 more games in the season starting Thursday with FAU, North Texas, and Tulsa. Then we'll probably lose to Navy at the end of the year around Thanksgiving time. But, you know, it's a weird time. Lost our head coach, got fired, Mike Houston, who was my coach for basically the majority of my time there. And I think it was just time to make a change. We're sitting kind of 500 in the season after having one of the top 10 easiest schedules this year. So the people upstairs on the third floor, we like to call them at ECU, wanted to make some changes. So, you know, it was kind of surprising, but the guys came out and got a really big win against Temple last week. They're not great, but still it was everyone I talked to, trainers, players, old coaches, you know, everyone said the vibes are really good, you know, leading up to that game, even after Coach Houston being fired. But, you know, it's a weird time in just college football. I mean, you're starting to pay players. The transfer portal, you can transfer an unlimited amount of time. So, you know, the people on the third floor kind of got to figure that out if we want to stay relevant and stay good. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
So your first year was last year, Scotty Montgomery.
Yes, my first year, Coach Montgomery got fired on a Thursday during practice before we played NC State on the Saturday. So like 2 days before the game, then we lost like 56-3.
So you get to see Mike Houston come in, just set it up.
Yeah.
How he wants the program, what kind of coach he's going to be. What was your initial impressions first year?
I mean, if you ask anybody in my class who was or older than me, we were like, you know, he probably didn't like us and we probably didn't like him too much. But that's kind of what you have to do. And, you know, back then I wouldn't say we were the most disciplined team or just, you know, where we needed to be as a program. And that was kind of the whole, you hear people say change the program around and kind of change like the theme and kind of what everyone's used to doing. So a lot of it was just, you know, getting back. We met them like one day. I think we played State on a Saturday. They hired our athletic director, John Gilbert, on a Sunday. Then we met Coach Houston on a Monday. So it was kind of –
when they fired the old coach and brought on Houston that Thursday, you didn't see him that next game on Saturday?
No, because he wasn't hired yet.
Okay.
So we ended up getting –
okay, he was fired Thursday, but the new one wasn't hired until the following
he got
week.
fired on the Thursday, and then I think our defensive coordinator – Coach Blackwell was our interim for that last game. They hired Mr. Gilbert on Sunday. Coach Houston was hired on a Monday. And I think we met him like that Monday or Tuesday. And then it was basically at Christmas time, so we all went home for a month.
He had been to back-to-back NCAA championships at the FCS level with James Madison. Had won one, lost one. Were you all impressed with the resume?
Yeah, I mean, we were impressed with it. And it was kind of weird because news, you know, college football fans are weird, so if you guys really pay attention, they start tracking flights and seeing where coaches are, like in that in-between time before bowl games and after the regular season. So it was kind of one of those where it broke like earlier in that week that Coach Houston was about to get paid a bunch of money to go to Charlotte, I think it was. And I think fans and the athletic department was like, okay, we got to go grab this guy, which is why they fired Coach Mo on that Thursday to just kind of get our new AD and I'm sure they're reaching out to Coach Houston. But yeah, it was definitely weird. We met him. You know, he probably knew a few of us just from recruiting, VA and North Carolina. You know, we still was sharing recruits, I'm sure, with James Madison. But yeah, we went home for a month and then was coming back trying to meet our new coaches and seeing what everything was about. So
he wins 4 games first year, wins 3 games the second year. Not a great start, but then turns it around. 7-win season, 8-win season. Y'all go to a couple bowls. You win a bowl. Did you think he had it turned around and going in the right direction?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, our class, you know, my class, we like to take credit for it. I mean, it was a group effort, but, like, our class was Coach Montgomery's kind of his last class. So We had to go through the kind of phase where, we had to go through the really hard times, losing. And then those younger players, they kind of came in, some of them, when we started to pick it up and win. So we kind of felt like we were big parts of turning it around. Obviously, you had like Holton Ahlers was in that class, our quarterback. We had Noah Henderson, who was an offensive lineman that came in our class. A lot of defensive guys, Gerard Stringer, Jaira Wilson up from Northside Jacksonville was on that team and in our class. So we had a lot of starters and a lot of snaps with that group. So we kind of felt really proud about that. And then, you see it now, and it's changed a little bit over the last few years, but, we can kind of smile and be sad a little bit knowing we had a big part to do with it.
Well, and I don't know if now is the right time to dive into it, but I'm curious how as a player, you go from East Carteret, where you were on the crest of that wave where you were winning a lot, right? I mean, your freshman, sophomore year was state championship years, right? Mm. So you came in after in basketball. Yeah. Well, then even in football, Caleb King is your head coach of what year for you?
Sophomore and junior year.
Yeah, so 16, even then, I mean,
15 and 16.
Has East Carteret ever been better in football than that, or in the modern era, than in that 2-year period?
Maybe 3 or 4 years they've done what he did. Yeah.
Versus the kids who maybe had been part of the freshman class, sophomore class or the senior class, junior class that had helped kind of turn things a little bit better. So you go from being at the very top of a movement of a team experiencing success to, the transition period where it wasn't so good, and now you're starting to get better again at ECU. That's just kind of interesting to me.
Well, your high school career is similar to your college career, right? Coaching changes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess three different head football coaches actually.
You went Greg Peel, Caleb King,
then
BJ
Frazier. Basketball was good, but football. I mean, it's just.
So you had 5 coaches in high school and college.
5 head coaches. 5 head coaches. And then position coaches, I probably had about 4 or 5 just in college. Just receiver, running back coaches. I mean, they move around, all the time.
You had to get to know a lot of names.
How much does that affect, like things like the in-between stuff, the warm-ups, the mentality, the scheming behind the scenes, like – you know what I mean? Like, how much does it change that little stuff?
Well, at least for an offensive player, we still had the same head coach and the same offensive coordinator when I was there at ECU. So none of that really changed. It was just kind of from day to day. And me playing 2 positions that didn't, running back and receiver, I was in 2 different rooms. I mean, some days, I think Roger Harris, he's still there now. They're starting running back. And I remember 2 years ago, he tore his ACL like week 3. I was playing slot receiver. And as soon as I get on the bus, they kind of knew Roger was going to be out for like the season. They were like, "Okay, you're come to my room." The running back coach was like, "Okay, you're in my room like tomorrow at practice."
Gotcha.
My position room. So I had Coach Keith Gaither my freshman year as a slot receiver coach. I had Fontel Mines, who's a receivers coach at Virginia Tech now. I had Drew Dudzik, who's a receivers coach at Furman now. I had Latrell Scott, who's a running back coach at Maryland right now.
So you still follow these individuals.
And I had Coach Foster, who's the running back coach at Northwestern now. So I think that's all my position coaches I had there.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So Maceo said he's part of a turnaround in Greenville. When they hadn't produced a winning season for 6 straight years, and then they go back-to-back winning seasons. They go 15-10 over those 2 years. They won the 8-5 is a really good year, and they win a bowl. That's the first bowl win they'd had since 2013 when they won in 2022, so almost 10 years. 7-5, 8-5, and go off the cliff after that. You go from 8-5 to 2-10, and then this year didn't start a whole lot better. And like you said, the higher ups said that we've seen enough. Are you surprised that it dropped off the way it did? Because it felt like.
I'm surprised it dropped off so far. I think we all expected to be a little drop off at least last season. I mean, we lost a NFL running back, NFL quarterback, NFL tight end, transferred Texas A&M tight end, 2 receivers that went professional. So I mean, we lost.
It's not a hyperbole to say that these are some of the best position players in school history. Right?
Yeah. I mean, Keaton Mitchell. I think that's probably the most famous person we know who's was starting for the Baltimore Ravens last year before he tore his ACL. I think he was averaging like 7 yards a carry as a running back. 5'9", probably around my size. We lost C.J. Johnson, Holton Ahlers, Noah Henderson on the offense. I think we had 3 offensive linemen get chances at the next level. Obviously, Avery Jones transferred. He's from Havelock. He transferred to Auburn, who's on the practice squad for the Bucks. Nashad Strother, who's from Havelock, is starting for Oregon right now. So we lost a lot of production. and protection on our offense that year.
But at the same time, losing production, losing players, that's part of college sports, right? Kids graduate, they move on. Typically, schools in that position with those kind of players are able to continue attracting new players. But in your column, you kind of broke down as to why in this changing college football environment, ECU has either been unwilling or unable to maybe adapt to some of the things that have made that recruiting process different. Am I right there?
I mean, I think it's top to bottom from sure, like the third floor, like I was saying, but also coaches. Because, I mean, with NIL, you're not getting any money and trying to, convince someone to come there without boosters or the athletic department kind of, being a part of that. But also as coaches, you got to, you can't, it's just not good enough to tell a player nowadays. It should be, that's how I came when I was coming out. It was like, we're going to offer you this scholarship. You're going to have this paid for. You're going to get a cost of attendance check every month. But now it's like, okay, we'll pay you $30,000 or $40,000 over 10 months to come to our school. And like, that can be hard for people to do. I mean, we saw Nick Saban not want to do it, and they had plenty of money. I think the Virginia basketball coach just quit basically a month or so before the season, I think for similar reasons. So, I mean, it's just really different now, and people just got to get used to it. But, I think that one thing about it is just the recruiting, and as far as like having NIL money for like high school guys, because you still got to be able to get high school guys, and portal guys don't always work out. People would like to tell you it works out, but it always doesn't work out. I mean, look at Florida State. They suck, and their team is like half of Alabama transfers, Ole Miss transfers, like whoever. So it doesn't always work. So you still need those like high school guys that want to be there, that are going to be there for a few years, going to really want to buy into the program. And for us, especially at ECU, we got to be able to out-recruit the people in Virginia and in North Carolina and in South Carolina, which I'm sure if you look at some sort of statistics over the last, 4 years, 3 or 4 years, I mean, we're getting out-recruited by our opponents.
And I'm curious, as someone who I don't watch a ton of college football. I see the scores, I'll see highlights and stuff. It feels like there are more upsets this year than I've ever seen before. Is that part of the equation here, where some of these schools like your I can't even think of schools that have Vandy, are they been able to offer things to players that are giving them opportunities that they didn't have before?
I'm sure. And then just you being able to transfer so easily now. I mean, before you had to wait until you graduated, or even if you left, you had to sit out a year. So now, I mean, guys that were, back up at Alabama or Georgia or whoever, big schools like that, can go to Vanderbilt and start immediately and kind of improve their roster just overall. I mean, even at ECU right now, we have our two top receivers or three are Colorado transfer from last year, and NC State transfer from this year, and a Florida State transfer from this year. So, I mean, that's kind of happening across the board. Now you got to consider, is that we have camaraderie? Are guys playing for money? Are they playing for wins? Those are other things to kind of think about.
It almost feels like that the randomness of shaking the dice and having a mixture of high school and portal players and NIL players attracted by the NIL. That's almost as random as throwing a bunch of high schoolers together who may want to be there, but you don't know if you've got camaraderie. You don't know if you've got good chemistry between these players. And from a viewer's perspective, especially a casual one, I feel like what's happening right now is a good thing on my end as a viewer. I get to see
chaos.
It's chaos,
right.
And I'd rather that than it's Ohio State again, it's Georgia again, it's Alabama again. And now, I mean, is it going to? No doubt, and I feel like at least from a consumer point of view, that seems to be a plus. I saw an article, I don't know who wrote it, said fans are going to have to start paying the price of the NIL, and I don't know what that means. I feel like we're benefiting, if anything, from this. Like I throw sports betting in, and it's just chaos. So I'm curious about if all that is connected.
I mean, I'm sure it is. I mean, it's just like, but even though it is connected, I still feel like you get those players in the portal or NIL kind of convinces them to come to your school. But I still think like the fundamental basis is having guys that have been there for a few years together as young players. I mean, even Michigan won it last year, and they had like 16 or something seniors leave. I mean, that was a huge class that had been there for a few years. Or even like who they played against, Washington, had like a 6-year, 7-year quarterback that was there for a long time. Or before that, Stetson Bennett and the Georgia Bulldogs won back-to-back, championships. So I think that's still the basis of like how to win and like kind of the recipe of how to win big games. But now it's just like, I mean, I get it too, as if I'm a coach, like, if I'm a coach or recruiter, like, and if I want to go get, John, who was a 2-year player at another school, he's already been developed, he already knows how to practice, he already knows how to do this, instead of getting Jill, who's coming out of East Carteret, that you still got to develop, get used to,
who's wide-eyed and fresh out of a small
like
town.
You're still not used to a college environment and everything that comes along with that. So I mean, I get it, like I really do, but it's got to be some type of balance. You got to still get those guys that really want to be there.
You kind of bridged the gap between both eras, because when did NIL portal start as far as your time at ECU? Their last year?
I think we had it a couple years. Okay. Maybe 2 or 3.
But probably not as
But it wasn't, I mean,
so you've kind of seen both sides.
Yeah, I mean, at East, it would be different if I was at a, Alabama or Auburn, where you could already kind of get all that money, regardless if you don't know what to do with it yet. But ECU, I mean, you probably had a couple guys really making money. Maybe you
mentioned Holt Naylor.
Yeah, Holt was making money. I mean, he was from Greenville.
Sure.
Keaton Mitchell, he was making some money, but it wasn't like, I mean, even then, it wasn't like how it is now. Like, there's a lot of guys now at ECU getting paid, like, let's just say $30,000 or $40,000. But Keaton Mitchell and Holt Naylors, if they were at ECU right now, I mean, they would be making a ton of, like, way more than that, twice that.
Yeah. How much do you think the degree of difficulty has gone up for a coach now dealing with all this?
Oh, a lot, I'm sure. I mean, some coaches are probably more, good at that type of thing, or, easier to learn for them. But, I mean, just knowing Coach Houston, I'm sure that's kind of had to be a transition. I mean, he's probably only 51 years old, pretty young, but he's like an old school guy. Like, I mean, just, straight military guy. We're going to do this, discipline, like you're going to earn anything that you get. So I could see where maybe that could be a, something that he had to work through. And I'm not really sure how much money the Boneyard Collective is, the NIL collective from the school, how much money they're really working with. So I'm sure
is that the name of the collective?
Yeah, the Boneyard Collective.
Nice.
So I'm not really sure how much money they were really working with, but I don't know as far as like recruiting, if he's saying, we're going to offer you this or that, or, I'm sure other schools is like, okay, we've got this for a bigger school, probably Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, even though they don't use it.
Sure, and I think, obviously a school like ECU is pretty small. Yeah. And I imagine, like, in the past, recruiting has always been about the coach, the coaching staff, right, facilities, prestige of school, your ability to win, how often you might play as an individual. But now this extra variable is not just an extra variable, it's a variable that affects all those other ones. Right, like how much money let me ask you too. You've mentioned a couple individuals there that may have NIL deals. Is it publicly known? Like, do they talk about it? I'm putting you on the spot here. Are you guessing? Do you know from behind the scenes, like off the record? Like, is this something that, like, do they say, hey, I came to ECU because I got some money, or hey, I'm getting paid X amount of dollars to come here and play? I'm just curious.
It's like, I don't think it's really supposed to be like that. I think, whatever the rules are, it's not supposed to be like that. But it's two different things. You can get NIL as an individual from a business, corporation, whatever.
Right. Well, I
but
get
your
that.
school,
No, of course.
The school collective.
You're facilitating sort of opportunities.
Yeah, but then the school collective is something different, where boosters are funneling that in purposely for, the players or whatever.
I see.
So, I mean, if I had to take a guess, like someone like our quarterbacks at ECU, I mean, whether they're good or not, both of them were 2 transfers this year. This is their first year at ECU. They're both, at least their starters, we had 2 starters, so they're probably getting around 60, something like that, 70. We had a first-round draft pick at corner this year. He was the 2nd overall prospect corner off the board, according to Mel Kiper this year, who got hurt earlier in the season at ECU. His name's Siobhan Revel. I mean, he was, I'm sure, getting paid a lot of money. So I think they kind of do it like that, but it's not really baseline. It's kind of like, okay, if someone had a good spring, or he's supposed to be the guy this year, hey, we need to bump him up more. Because I think most of their contracts, at least at ECU, are like 10 months. All
right, well, let me add another wrinkle to it then, because there's 2 sides of the coin here, and as reporters here at Carteret County, we don't get a ton of big name individuals in the what do you call the monetary sports, the profit? What do you call
Revenue.
it? Revenue sports. Thank you. Football, men's basketball.
Right.
We don't get a ton of huge prospects in that department. So, like the lawsuit that happened out of Grimsley, the kid for the NIL, that was part of what brought the Supreme Court or the judge's decision last month.
Passing NIL,
Yeah. So, which started it immediately instead of wait until next year. So, there's two sides of the coin here. Obviously, there's big name individuals who are dominating the headlines with the deals they're getting, and they're being attracted and recruited different places. But then there are, I want to call them regular people.
Right. I mean,
Sure. Who are just want to go play college football.
The middle class.
Right.
Sure. And I think you did a column several months back where you talked about how somebody like you, who the scenario in which you got to ECU, it would look different now. And I'm curious, knowing how your recruitment to ECU went and how you went there and played there, if you were to try and do that today, would it look different? And which of the two scenarios works better for someone like yourself?
I mean, for someone like me who was, basically after thinking I was going to one school and then having to be a preferred walk-on at a bigger school, like for someone like me, first off, I wouldn't have any leverage, but most likely I wouldn't even get in the building. Nowadays, as the money goes up, you're going to still want to go try and get those guys out of the portal who've already kind of been developed and, aren't 5'8", 170 pounds, to be honest.
It's a lot tougher to get in to play college sports now.
It definitely is. I mean, I don't know how many guys we have getting, those opportunities around here now. I mean, I'm just thinking about the Jones kid at West. I mean, he's good. I've seen him play. He's good enough to he's talented enough to go play at ECU or something like that. But maybe 5 years ago he could have been a preferred walk on there. But nowadays, I'm not sure what opportunities.
Sure, we saw this 2 years ago, right, with the two West kids at NC State.
Well, we saw with I think the best example of this is Jackson Ellingsworth.
Okay, there you go.
He's one of the best college recruits of a revenue sport that we've had in this county in a long time. Right. And when you add portal and also now COVID, you used to have just a redshirt year, which could be a 5-year deal, but now these guys have 6 years. Yeah. And according to the coaches at West, he was ready to go to school, and all the schools were just like, we don't have any slots because we have kids.
Yeah, it's overcrowded. Yeah,
it's just saturated.
Yeah.
So see, that's the part I guess I don't understand as the layman here in the room for college sports. If there are more opportunities to recruit individuals, has the pool gotten bigger? Is that why it's tougher to get in? Because if you have 100 kids. Let's say you compress the entirety of college athletes into 100 kids, and now the top 20% are going to be recruited and attracted to different programs. How has that changed the fate of the bottom 80%?
Well, I think adding all these years, these kids would be gone. So the market's oversaturated.
Oh, they've stayed.
Yeah,
right.
I see.
And I think it's only a couple.
Every class coming out.
They have the incentive to remain to get paid instead of to graduate and leave.
There's guys that have been at 3 or 4 schools.
Right. So at some point, then this will somewhat even out.
I mean, it should. I think this maybe is the last year, last class that was a COVID class.
I get it now.
But also the guys that were. Only the big guys are getting recruited out of high school, though, now. Only those really, really, the
top
5
stars,
top
250, 350.
So what I'm wondering then is those top people that are getting recruited, and then here comes time to start football season, and we're short X amount of roster spots. Where are they getting those rosters? And now we're going back to the recruiting pool from the kids in high school who wanted to play, and whoever's left over, we're trying to choose the best of that.
Yeah, I mean,
and
some walk-ons, things like that. Or, I mean, you're even seeing guys from lower levels transferring up, from a Elon or from a school
or
like
JUCO
that.
program.
JUCO, coming up.
Because they still have experience.
But, yeah, you still have that film. You can see what
see
what they do against not high school talent. But, I mean, even now it's just, I would say the top 4 stars, 5 stars, 3 stars. Those are the ones still coming out of high school. Because I mean, if you're looking at these rosters, probably 40% of the rosters from year to year is made up of NIL or transfer guys.
Sure.
Well, before it was the whole roster is, high school guys coming out of high school. Now it's like at least 1 year every year, probably, at least 33% of your team is transfers. Gosh. So, I mean, that's just taken away from the high school pool.
So the most important position in sports, no doubt, quarterback.
Mm.
And Holt Nailers is talked about in reverential terms like Jeff Blake and David Garrard, and so big shoes to fill. You can't really give ding ECU for going after Mason Garcia. He's a 4-star.
Right.
You're thinking he's going to work. Unfortunately, it did not. This year they've got Jake Garcia. He throws 12 picks in the first 6 games.
Yeah.
Is the reason Mike Houston doesn't have a job at ECU anymore because he couldn't fill the shoes of Holt Nailers?
I'm sure probably, in some ways, yeah. And like I said in the column a little bit, it's not all his fault. Like, that's one reason, like, I mean, I get why, like, everything falls on his shoulders, but it's not all his fault. Like, I mean, we might not even be in this situation if, let's just say Mason. I love Mason. Like, don't get it the wrong way, but, like, let's just say Mason was the guy. Like, everyone thought he was supposed to be. And, I mean, Coach Houston doesn't develop the quarterbacks. I mean, I can tell you who develops the quarterbacks at the time. I don't have to mention his name, but, like,
I think you did in the column.
He got fired last year. So, I mean, it was his job to develop the quarterbacks. I don't think even if you maybe ask Holton and he's being really honest, or any of the other quarterbacks that were there, if you ask them, how much were they, developed as a quarterback and just ready to play. I mean, Holton was just one of those guys who had got a lot of snaps, a 5-year basically starter. And then you build up the program. You have a little bit more room when you suck. But when you start winning, it's an expectation. So I think, combination of that and then Mason stepping into that role off of a 8-win bowl championship team, I think it could have been a lot if you don't have the right, lessons and preparation.
You compared your school to other schools in the American Athletic Conference and the NIL, and as we mentioned at the top with the headline of your column, you're saying that they're not really matching what teams in their conference are doing money-wise. Definitely not matching what teams in the state are doing, as far as the ACC schools and stuff. And you're like, if they want to be the kind of football program they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, just look at Tulane or Memphis or UC or USF or any of those schools that you can see it when you go on their campus where the money's at. Like you can see it. I've been there. So those are the schools you are competing with. Luckily, now you're not competing with the Cincinnatis and the UCF and Houston that moved, and SMU that's in the ACC now, or the Big 12 now. Like, you're lucky you're not still competing with them, because when NIL started a few years ago, those were the schools that had some funds to go ahead and be like, everybody gets $20,000 or whatever. When we were nobody, you might have a handful of players getting, a couple extra bucks or a free meal from a restaurant here and there.
Sure.
So like, that's what it really was when it first started, at least at ECU. Like, guys would get like a bunch of free food or stuff like that. But, you go to Cincinnati up the road, or they're getting $20,000 a piece, or Desmond Ritter was there and Sauce Gardner. Like, they're getting paid. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So.
What is the current backroom talk of who the next coach is going to be? East Carolina, give us a scoop, Maceo. What are you hearing on the streets?
I mean, I keep hearing Garrett Riley. I think that's a big one. Lincoln Riley's little brother, who's the OC at Clemson, doesn't look good this past week, what they did against Louisville, because they couldn't score. But Garrett Riley's been a big candidate, young guy, but also with a big name. And I think that's what the ECU fans kind of want right now.
Like yourself, a former ECU wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Maybe if I was into coaching and left, but went somewhere big. But I think that's what everyone's kind of expecting now, like a big splash, someone that can attract recruits and players, and has pretty deep ties at some of these big southern universities. I've heard Joe Sloan, the offense coordinator at LSU, also. That
seems to be the sexy name at the moment, right?
Right. So I mean, those are the names I'm hearing. Obviously, like, it could be anybody. And if I'm a OC at LSU, I don't know if I'd want to leave LSU or Clemson, but I mean, those guys want to be head coaches, so that's usually how it works. You're not going to get that opportunity at a Clemson before you become a head coach at ECU.
And it's funny, I don't know. You said Garrett Riley.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about him, but I know a little bit about Clemson in terms of how Dabo feels about the NIL and the transfer portal. And I think, there's been stories that have popped out all fall that he's still very old school. does not favor it. I'm looking at something right now that says since the transfer portal opened up in 2018, incoming transfers have made 0 starts for Clemson.
Yeah.
That was August of this year. So funny that, I mean, if someone like that would come into ECU, obviously he'd have his own mindset and his own way of doing things, but I just can't help but look at that connection and think, what experience do you have working with this new system if you're at a school where the old system is still very much in play?
Right. I mean, I think he's still a young guy, and like at the end of the day, like we were talking about before the show, like, you know, if you're a position coach, offensive coordinator, you do what the head coach says.
Sure.
So at the same time, even though he might think, you know, we should do something different, you know, you have to do what they say. So I think, I mean, he's in his 30s, I believe. So I think he would be a guy, you know, he kind of sees what you have to do. I mean, even out of Clemson, like they don't use the portal that much, and NIL is not a huge thing to attract the players, but I mean, they still got a lot of money they're working with over there, and like they still understand like what they have to do. And that's why people question Dabo, because they're wondering, you know, when are you going to start dipping into NIL, because they haven't been the same Clemson that we were used to, at least these past few years.
No, you're right.
But I think a guy like him that's what everyone's looking for. Name, young, can attract people here. Definitely an offensive mind, I think, is what people want for sure as a head coach, because Coach Houston wasn't that. He wasn't an offensive guy, more of a defensive guy. So I think that's kind of what everyone's expecting and kind of pushing Mr. Gilbert to do.
If ECU doesn't bump up their commitment to NIL, is East Carolina become a really tough place to be a head coach?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's been tough. I mean, NIL definitely makes it tough, but like I think before any of us ever got there, that's including Mr. Gilbert, Coach Houston, you know, all of us players over the past 5 years, before any of us even got there, like we were already behind as far as like facilities and things like that. Like, I mean, we still don't have an indoor. Like, so Minji's Coliseum, the basketball arena, has needed to be redone probably a long time ago, you know. So things like that, it's like we were already behind. So now when we're just getting up and we started winning to raise some money and we were able to start maybe putting some money into facilities, NIL pops up. And then so it's kind of now you're fighting for money, like we need a new facility, or we need an indoor facility, or we need a new basketball arena or a new baseball arena. Just got a second weight room for athletics when my last year there, but now it's NIL, so it's like, do we need to do that? Because those same facilities and stuff that were attracting high school or recruits or transfers, you know, that's not attracting them as much anymore. You know, it's the money is attracting everybody now, frankly. So I think that's kind of where we're fighting at right now, at least at ECU. And you know, I think it's still doing better, because I mean, we weren't getting paid what these guys are getting paid now there. So I mean, it's still improving, but you know, we honestly just need somebody to just give a bunch of money, like just honestly, like Mr. Beast or somebody, just drop a bag on us for like a year and just let's see.
He needs some good press right now anyway.
Yeah,
so
yeah, Mr. Beast, just give like a $5 million to us. Like, please, Greenville 252 native, please, just help us.
You've been to these other programs in the AAC, Tulane, Memphis, North Texas, South Florida, Charlotte, Rice, UTSA, Temple, UAB, Tulsa, Florida. Where's ECU ranking, like facility-wise and NIL-wise, you think, in that group?
I mean, I'll say stadium-wise, like I think we definitely have like the biggest stadium out of anybody like in the conference. And I would say the press box too, the new Town Bank Tower they built in 2019, I think that's definitely like top tier, like better than anybody. And honestly, a lot of those schools don't have their own stadiums. Like, I mean, Temple doesn't have their own stadium. USF doesn't have their own stadium. They play in the Buck Stadium down in Tampa. So I would say we rank pretty high as far as stadiums and like field and everything like that. Memphis wasn't that great. Tulane was pretty great, smaller but pretty good.
So they're in a good conference as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, like I mean, we compete as far as like just stadium, I would say. Yeah. Like, you know, we definitely compete. I'm sure those schools have indoor facilities, but we don't. But we definitely compete stadium-wise.
NIL, maybe not so much, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, NIL.
That's where the lack is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm not sure what, you know, everybody over there is making, but I have a roommate, actually, that plays at Memphis right now. He's their starting center. And I know they're getting paid more than what, you know, some of our guys are getting paid over there.
If you had to put a prediction on it, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, do you think the next coach gets it turned around?
Absolutely. I think you have to. I mean, and I still think, I mean, the conference changed so much now. It's like it's favorable for us to win. Like, and I think that's why everyone was so disappointed this year. I mean, they didn't fire Coach Houston after 2-10 season last year. They fired him this year. I mean, I think everyone was so disappointed just with our strength of schedule. Like, we had so many opportunities to win, like at Liberty, at home against App. And those are like up the road teams that are like, you know, everyone probably knows each other. Like, you want to play, you really want to beat those schools. So I think that's kind of where, you know, they drew the line, you know, with some of the stuff going on. So I think that's why everyone was just so disappointed this year. And I still think we'll go to a bowl game. I mean, we won. With everything that's happened, like, and that's why I was so surprised they fired Coach Houston after Army, because it was like, well, did you expect him to? I know he got killed by Charlotte the week before, but did you expect us to beat Army? You know, and we still have 4 games left, 3 games, 4 or 3 games left, and we just need to go to a bowl. Yeah. So I think we're still going to go to a bowl, which is something that we weren't doing when I got to school.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Maybe that bowl game is used as a come out and visit us, and you know,
recruits and stuff.
Sure. Without having the coach there.
Yeah, Maceo, man. Thank you for the insights. The man's on the sideline every week knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, trying to. Sorry, got a big one Thursday against FAU, 8:00. So I think we'll
3 games left, and none of them on a Saturday.
No. Well, I think we have our last.
I think it's 2 Thursdays and a Friday.
Is that on a Friday? Thanksgiving Friday, Black Friday?
I think that's what it is.
Come on, man. I'm gonna be hungry. I'm gonna be like,
oh, you're gonna be out there.
Dang, yeah, but 2 straight Thursdays. I know that. Jesus.
Yeah, it's a weird deal, man. College football, they play every day of the week now.
My
gosh. You're going Florida Atlantic, right?
Yeah, FAU,
Tulsa, North Texas, and Navy. Those last 2 are going to be tough.
Yeah, those last 2 will be tough.
Yeah.
North Texas, and hopefully we get it done these first weeks right here.
Is Navy at home?
Navy is at home. Yeah.
My bad. There's 4 games left. Only one's on a Saturday.
Yeah. Okay. Is it the last game? Is it?
Yeah, Friday.
I think.
Yeah.
Wait, is the last game on a Friday?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I was so excited to get eat good on Thursday, and
you are. Then you go to work the next day though.
At least you don't have to go on the road anymore, man.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
High school football season ended last week with the county championship. If that's what you want, that's what we call it here with 3 teams. That's kind of a weird deal, but
yeah, it's small bragging rights, but it's there.
West won for the gazillionth year in a row. They had a fantastic victory over Croatan in a game that could have gone either way. We had the coaches on a couple months ago to do our preseason preview. Andrew Gurley of Croatan, B.J. Frazier of East Carteret, and Daniel Barrett of West Carteret. And then in the last segment of that episode, we gave our preseason predictions. So we will go over them now. There is some good, there is some bad, there is some ugly. We'll start with the ugly, which is me and Croatan. I got 3 wrong. Beddingfield, they beat Beddingfield. I said that was going to be a loss. Richlands, I said that was going to be a W. That was an L. And then the big game of the year.
The last one.
I thought the Cougars were good enough to beat West this year. They were not.
So you had predicted 2 wins that were going to wound up being losses.
Yeah, I said they were going to go 7-3. I said they were going to be 4-1 in conference.
Gotcha.
I was off by 1 in both. They went 6-4.
So they did a little bit worse than you thought they were going to do.
They were a game less than what I thought.
So whereas I had them going 6-4, they did go 6-4. I just swapped a win and a loss. I thought they were going to beat Richlands and lose to Beddingfield. Instead, they beat Beddingfield and lost to Richlands. Yeah. Richlands beat West Carteret and Croatan this year. I infamously said during that session at the beginning of the year that I'd never seen a good Richlands team. Unfortunately, I did not cover them this year, so I still haven't.
You picked the wrong year.
But I've seen on paper.
You picked the wrong year to throw Richlands under the bus.
Yeah, I just never, I don't know. I don't associate the name of that school with a good football team.
Well, they haven't for a while.
Sure,
The coach
sure.
there, they are just had a fantastic.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, this in our weekly News Times Pigskin Pick'em, I picked Richlands in that game over White Oak, and
Okay.
I'm still kind of surprised that they lost. 'Cause I saw both of them, and I thought Richlands would win, but White
I think
Oak
it goes back to, wasn't Richlands in that Coastal 8, that 1A,
They
2A?
were.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to a lot of those games between East Carteret and them.
Back in the
Croatan
day, it
and
felt
them.
like West beat them every year.
Yeah, and West would play them non-conference sometimes.
Right,
so
right.
yeah,
West Carteret, I got 2 wrong. I thought they we did not give Richlands the credit they deserved. I thought that was a W. They lost to Richlands, and again, I got the big one wrong, so I flipped those.
yeah.
But I hit perfect on both. I said West would go 6-4, 3-2. They went 6-4, 3-2.
Sure. I thought West was going to go 7-3. The game I missed was Richlands, so that being an L made them 6-4. I did, however, think that West was going to beat Croatan. I mean, that was kind of a coin flip game. I had not
50-50.
seen them. Didn't see either of those. Well, I saw Croatan against Bedingfield and against Swansboro, but didn't really see them against conference teams until the very end. So that was still kind of a coin flip going into the pick'em that week on who was going to possibly win. And even if you were there that night, that was a coin flip there until the very end.
I think the story of the year in our region, I guess you'd call it, would probably be Richlands.
I think so. I think you're right.
So good.
Well, especially because White Oak came into the season with a lot of their reputation was higher, and they didn't deliver the way I thought they were going to deliver. Still playoffs to play.
Well,
they may do well.
They won the conference.
Sure, but
you thought they were going to truck.
Yeah, and that's not been the case. Even the game against West Carteret, it wasn't
a decent game midway through the third quarter.
Maybe like 3 touchdown lead at the end, which is not. I thought it was going to be 50s to.
Oh, you thought they were just going to be like.
Well, people were coming in and saying this is a really scary team, yada yada. So Richland's definitely the surprise.
Yeah, I mean there's some other surprises here and there, but I think the turnaround they've done there at Richlands is phenomenal, and kudos to them. We both had. We had them 0-4 in the county, 0-2 in the county.
Sure, and that's not what it went.
Between me and you, it was 0-4 because 2 picks on my side, 2 picks on your side.
So they went 4-0, 2-0, yeah.
They flipped that.
Well,
they went 4-0.
You talk about storylines. I think at the end of the year, when we look at some of the best games that have happened throughout the course of the school year, Dixon versus West Carteret may be up there. That was a great football game.
That was phenomenal.
An unexpected great football game. One that J.J. Smith tried to get yours truly to go out and cover, but yours truly smartly knew that if you didn't want to be there till 10:30, 11 o'clock that night, they'd cover a different game.
Kudos to both the Bird boys in Onslow County, Jonathan Bird at White Oak and Pat Bird at Richlands. A great year for Onslow County with those two and the way they played. That was the conference championship when they played. East Carteret. Kind of weird because North Lenoir no longer on the schedule. I had that as an L. You had that as an L. Mm-hmm. They've lost to them in non-conference over the last few years. They flipped that out for Sandhills,
which didn't play.
Right.
And if they had, I think East Carteret probably takes that pretty handily. Sandhills is we looked at what's the name of Simmons rating? What's the
the Simmons rating?
Yeah, what's the name of the website? The gentleman.
I bet it's it. Simmons rating.
Yeah, but what's the guy's name?
Brian Simmons.
Brian Simmons, which is on our pick'em panel, right?
No, he's not.
No, okay.
No, we're not putting him on there. He'd win every year.
Okay, that's right. That's maybe the joke you mentioned. But I was able to look up Swansboro and see where they ranked in the state in terms of consecutive games lost, and Sandhills was right up there.
Right.
I think Swansboro is tied for 6th. Sandhills is like 5th or something.
The longest losing streak in the state.
Yeah. So tough times.
So regardless of forfeit or non-forfeit.
We don't hold that against us, though, because it's a different team.
Other than that, we were pretty spot on East Carteret.
I was not. I thought they were going to lose to Lejeune. I thought they were going to lose to Southside because didn't know what kind of a conference year they were going to have. Lejeune had that freshman quarterback, and it was kind of felt 50-50. But no, they beat both those teams. So.
Well, you're right. I guess we were pretty far. Of the 3, we were the farthest off of East Carteret. You said East was going to go 3-7.
I did. Instead, they went 6-4.
Right, and you said 2-2 in the conference. They went 4-0.
And they swept it. Yeah.
I was lonely a game better, but still, I said 4-6, and they went 6-4. 2 games being off in a 10-game schedule. That's a lot.
It is.
Yeah. I don't mind if we miss 1, but we shouldn't be missing 2. We're Carteret County football experts.
Well, and usually we opt to go for we'll be on East Carteret's side. We'll say maybe they'll, but. I think
we tend to try to be positive.
That's right, but I think looking at that schedule, we kind of thought maybe it would be one more year of at least 50-50 for me.
It was a pretty good year in the county. All 3 finished above 500. That is really rare.
All 3 are going to the playoffs?
All 3 are going to the playoffs. I think all 3, everything, as always, depends on the bracket. But I don't know. If you tell me all 3 county teams win the first round, I don't think that would shock me.
No, not at all. Anybody playing at home?
They're not out yet, the brackets.
Sure, but I mean, I think East Carteret or Croatan and West were both in that 16, 17, 18 range, maybe, or
we'll see. Probably not.
Probably
we'll
not playing at home.
Yeah,
East Carteret always has that weird thing because there's the lone 2A team in that 1A, 2A conference.
But a really good year in the county. He says as he's choking to death.
Well, I remember doing a column. I don't know if it was last year or the year before about appreciating high school football even when it's mediocre, because there have been many years where all three teams did not finish over 500, or all three did not make the playoffs, and that's not a regular thing.
I think that might be my column next week, is to go over the times that.
Well, I'll send you my old one.
Oh,
Start
you
there.
done that over the 500?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think I've done that before too, and it is a rare thing in this world. So kudos to Daniel Barrow, Andrew Gurley, and B.J. Frazier. I think
absolutely
it was a above average year in the county, and we were glad to cover it.